Next question. Alan asks, with Horner no longer in for Cadillac or Ferrari, where does he go? Yeah, so this is the news that Cadillac didn't offer a non-denial denial. They flat out put a denial of we're not talking to Horner at the moment, or they're not talking to him full stop. Um, I didn't really. I know people thought Cadillac just because I think everyone. Look, I think everyone has this blatant idea that Horner basically won't go to a team unless he can control the engine, right? Like because of how it went with Red Bull. But I just don't think that's a stopping point for Horner because like Horner won championships. In fact, Horner won all of his championships without having an engine that was his own, right? He just wanted to control that for the future. So there's nothing to say like when he goes to a new team that that's a sticking point for him. That he wants it to be a works team. Like, I think everyone hangs up on that too much. I think the key issue here is he wants stake in the game, ownership in the game. And I think given the ownership of Cadillac, I thought it would be possible but unlikely that Cadillac would be willing to give him like a 20 or 30% stake in the team. I just thought like, they're in the investing phase. Like it made sense in many ways because it's kind of a carbon cut of like Red Bull early days. I just don't think they were willing to give that percentage away given how much they're putting in and how little he can put in money wise. And I think they also probably see this as a long term project anyway to build. And also, like GM and Cadillac, I don't know if if they're willing to have someone like with all of the kind of bad publicity around them as Horner right now anyway. So I just didn't see it happening. Ferrari, I didn't see happening just because I think, one, they have Fred, and I think they're not going to want to change and have instability again right now. Two, Hamilton's there. I think that's less of an issue because I don't see him being there in the long term, to be honest, given his performance. And three, I just don't think Horner wants to go to Ferrari. Like, the simple fact is, Horner's definitely, if he's not getting a stake at Red Bull, he was never getting a stake at Ferrari. And I think that's a sticking point for him. And two, the chaos at Red Bull is bad enough without going to absolute chaos of the board in Ferrari. So why would you get kicked out of one board and then go to the worst board on the grid? So Ferrari's just never happening for me. The simple fact is I still stand where I did before. I think for me, it's Alpine with an outside chance of Audi. And the reason I say that is I think Audi could look at the situation of Mercedes and think to themselves, right, like we could give him basically a loan, like Volkswagen could give him a loan basically of like, we'll give you 20% and you pay it off with, performances or with whatever, over time instead of a payout, like instead of paying you your annual fee, it's just paid off with equity. Like they could do something like that. And he would be the perfect guy to run that team. The reason I don't see that happening is I think Audi right now, things are on the up and they have Mattia Binotto, they have Jonathan Wheatley, and things are turning around without needing to give someone a stake. So I just, no pun intended on stake or kick there. Alpine, on the other hand, it's the ideal situation, right? The Alpine brand and Renault themselves, they've removed the engine. They are clearly not wanting to be as hands-on at the team as they were before. They've already sold part of it to the investment group in the UK. One way or the other, Horner could get some sort of buy-in because the consortium who've already bought 24% might be interested in backing Horner, or Alpine and Renault might be interested in giving Horner a discounted buyout for it because they could keep the Alpine brand name on, as like a title sponsor, be much cheaper for them. Horner could also bring in some consortium, some people to buy it out. Flavio would have lots of wealthy friends, and as does Horner with Bernie and so on. And it's also a team that doesn't mind bad publicity because it's literally run by Flavio Briatore. And the only things I think stopping it are twofold. One is it's a Mercedes engine for next year, which means Toto is supplying Horner with an engine. I don't think that's as big a sticking point as people think it is. because I think that's a signed deal and there's probably nothing that could be done about it. Horner comes in and has 1 to 2 to maybe 3 years with the engine, begrudgingly of Toto. And, Toto knows that Alpine's not going to beat the works team. Like McLaren is the one he's probably worried about. So beating Horner with the same engine will be a nice little kind of consolation prize in the interim. And then Horner will have to be given an engine by someone else anyway under the regulations. So he gets an Audi, a Ferrari, or a Honda under the regulation set. So I don't think that's as big of a sticking point as people make it out to be. And then the other sticking point is Flavio. But I think Flavio is the transitional leader. Like, he's not the long-term leadership of the team. And also Flavio and Horner get on. So I could very much see a situation where Flavio does exactly what Horner needs him to do, which is Horner comes in, takes over the CEO and team principal role from Flavio, basically controls the team, gets a 20% stake, either by being essentially given it or by finding some people to back him to do it. And then Flavio turns into the Helmut Marko role, which is doing the things that Horner didn't like doing, firing people, dealing with drivers, that kind of thing, being the hard-nosed guy who's willing to just drop a driver at a drop of a hat if he wants. So I think Alpine for me, it just makes the most sense. And I would not be surprised if by January, that's what it is. I just don't see any other place for him to go. Cadillac's off the table. Ferrari was never really an option in my book anyway. Mercedes obviously isn't, for obvious reasons. Red Bull is gone. McLaren not happening for obvious reasons as well. Haas, I just don't think so, because Gene Haas isn't willing to sell. And unless Toyota take over and want Horner and are willing to give him money, I don't see that either. As I've already discussed, I don't see stake being there. V-Carb, obvious reasons. Aston Martin, I just know, like, it's Andy Cowell and Newey. I just don't see that happening. It could, but I really don't see it. I just don't see any of these happening. So yeah, my money's on Alpine, 100%.